Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to Rise Records. I'm Riley, and this is the podcast where I delve into my favorite records and explain the stories behind them. Today, I am delving into one of rock's most haunting left turns, Bruce Springsteen's Nebraska. In this episode, I'm going to cover the background and the creation of the album. I'm going to go track by track, and then I'm going to talk about the big new 2025 box set, Nebraska 82 Expanded Edition, and the new film, Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere, which dramatizes this exact era. So, I'm not going to waste a lot of time here. Let's get into it. By 1982, Bruce Springsteen was already a superstar. He'd released Born to Run, Darkness on the Edge of Town, and The River, played stadiums, had a full band, the E Street Band, behind him. And yet, out of that fame, he recorded a small, intimate record at home, 10 spare songs captured on a 4-track cassette in his Colts Neck, New Jersey bedroom. Those home demos, lo-fi voice, guitar, harmonica, and occasional sparse percussion or glockenspiel became the album Nebraska, released September 30, 1982. This record is stark and dark. Its narrators are often felons, drifters, worried parents, men behind the wheel, portraits of American desperation, and small, doomed choices. Why release home demos rather than fully produce them? Well, Bruce actually tried. He brought their demos to the E Street Band and spent weeks attempting electric versions in the Power Station studio, but the full band takes didn't fully capture the tone and intimacy of the original recordings. He ultimately decided to release the raw tapes, preserving the mood he'd first created. That choice defined Nebraska's power. It sounded like confessions recorded in a small room. So the actual recordings were done on a simple 4-track recorder with 2 Shure SM57 mics, a Gibson J200 acoustic, a harmonica, and a few overdubs. Bruce and his engineer Mike Batlin mixed some of the best songs from a tape he'd made between December 1981 and January 1982, giving the album a consistent, close atmosphere. The cassette contained around about 17 songs, however, and only 10 were selected for the record. Some of the other songs later surfaced as full band tracks on Born in the USA or B-sides. A note on the sound, however, that lo-fi cassette tape hiss that you hear on the album, the proximity of Bruce's voice and guitar, those are part of the record's emotional architecture. So let's get into it now, track by track. The album opens with the title track, Nebraska, a first-person account told through the voice of real-life spree killer Charles Starkweather, as filtered through Springsteen's imagination. The narrator is chilling, matter-of-fact, numb, and flat-out rationalizing violence. The spare guitar and the almost conversational vocal make it feel like you're listening to a confession. Bruce's use of place and the flat cadence give the song a courtroom-like inevitability. This isn't glamorized outlaw myth, it's the bleak logic that led to a crime. This track sets the tone, moral emptiness, isolation, and the consequences of small choices. Those infamous last lines still haunt me to this day. They declared me unfit to live, said into that great void my soul would be hurled. They wanted to know why I did what I did. Well, sir, I guess there's just a meanness in this world. Yeah, that line got me when I first listened. Atlantic City follows, and man, this one is just an absolute masterclass in compressed storytelling. The narrator travels to Atlantic City seeking a new start while acknowledging his own complexity in violence and crime. Musically, it's more melodic than the title track, but it's still intimate. There's lines about sketchy boardwalk life and gambling that juxtapose a city of faded glamour with a man whose moral bank is very nearly empty, but he still clings on to a little bit of hope for himself and his partner. Now, baby, everything dies, that's a fact. But maybe everything that dies someday comes back. Put your makeup on, fix your hair real pretty, and meet me tonight in Atlantic City. In performance history, this song became a concert staple and was later covered by many artists. It's one of the album's emotional centers, and perhaps the best known song off of this record. The third track, Mansion on the Hill, reads like a childhood memory refracted through adult alienation. Glimpses of a mansion on a hill become a symbol of distance and longing. There's a place out on the edge of town, sir, rising above the factories and the fields. Now ever since I was a child I can remember that mansion on the hill. In the day, you can see the children playing on the road that leads to those gates of hardened steel. Steel gates that completely surround, sir, the mansion on the hill. The arrangement is nearly electric. The voice is small in the frame. The guitar arpeggios are soft. Bruce writes class into detail. The mansion is a malice, as an unreachable world, and the song's melancholy is about the narrator's recognition he'll never cross that hill. Johnny 99 is up next, and this is a blues-inflected tale of a workplace decay and a man pushed to violence after losing his job. The narrator's anger and dark humor come through. Well, they closed the auto plant a mile wide late that month. Ralph went out looking for a job, but he couldn't find none. He came home too drunk from mixing Tanqueray and wine. He got a gun, shot a night clerk, and now they call him Johnny 99. But the end isn't redemptive, as in the courtroom the character seemingly accepts his fate as a way to escape life. Well, Your Honour, I do believe I'd be better off dead, and if you can take a man's life for the thoughts that's in his head, then won't you sit back in that chair and think it over just one more time, and let him shave off my hair and put me on that execution line. Notably, this song also later worked out well as a full band track on stage, but on Nebraska, it has an intimacy that foregrounds personal collapse over protest. Highway Patrolman is a quiet epic of brotherhood and moral compromise, one of my favorites on this record. The narrator is a highway patrolman whose brother Frank keeps getting into trouble. Now ever since we was young kids, it's been the same come down. I get a call on the shortwave, Frankie's in trouble downtown. Well, if it was any other man, I'd put him straight away, but when it's your brother, sometimes you look the other way. The song ends with the patrolman letting his brother slip away over the Canadian border after he committed a crime. A moral ambiguity that's crushing because the narrator doesn't justify it, he just simply does it. Springsteen's vocal here is weary and resigned. The guitar figures conjure open roads and small towns. It's Americana as a moral drama. The sixth track, State Trooper, feels like an anxious night drive. Paranoia, isolation, and a vocal that leans towards whispered menace. New Jersey Turnpike, riding on a wet night, neath the refineries glow out where the great black rivers flow. License registration, I ain't got none, but I got a clear conscience about the things that I've done. Mr. State Trooper, please don't stop me. Please don't stop me. Please don't stop me. The rhythm here has a motoric push, and the lyrics are a mixture of literal and existential flight. The production's thinness makes every breath and string scrape audible. It's an exercise in dramatic, anxious tension. Used Cars follows, and this is a sly and sardonic track. The narrator peddles cheap salvation, used cars, and religion for sale. There's a dark satire at work here. The song skewers the transactional nature of salvation and the hustles that sustain small economies. Now my ma, she fingers her wedding band and watches the salesman stare at my old man's hands. He's telling us all about the break he'd give us if he could, but he just can't. Well, if I could, I swear I'd know just what I'd do. Now, mister, the day the lottery I win, I ain't ever gonna ride in no used car again. The melody here is deceptively catchy and the voice is sly. On the album, it acts as a strange, almost comic relief that still sits in the same moral ecosystem. Bruce uses an excellent juxtaposition in this line from the third verse. Now the neighbors come from near and far as we pull up in our brand new used car. I love that line. It really stuck out when I heard the song for the first time. Open All Night is the album's most upbeat tune. It's an urban rockabilly tinged sprint about a night run across a city to see a lover. It's notable because it's the only track that leans on a more extroverted musical palette, with Bruce using his Telecaster instead of his acoustic. But lyrically, it's still saturated with the album's overall theme of loneliness. The narrator is racing, not to escape, but to get back to his partner after completing the night shift at work. Your eyes get itchy in the wee hours, sun's just a red ball rising over them refinery towers, radios jammed up with gospel stations, lost souls, long-distance salvation. Hey Mr. DJ, won't you hear my last prayer? Hey ho, rock and roll, deliver me from nowhere. On the record, its momentum feels like a desperate effort to outrun the bleakness. Now, we've arrived at the penultimate My Father's House, which is a creaky, haunted hymn about home and inheritance. The house is both a physical and an emotional structure. Now, before I go any further, this song really hit me where it hurts the first time I listened to it, because I grew up without my father around. He was, and still is, just some dude I really couldn't care for. But when I listen to this song, I can't help but imagine what life would have been like had he stuck around, and the connection that we might have had. I mean, I do have a father figure in my life now, and I can't imagine life without him. Without him, none of this would be possible. But that's a whole other thing. If I had to choose between my real dad and this father figure, I would choose the latter. Anyway, I am getting a little bit off track. It's just songs about dads that get me, Even Independence Day from the River got me really good. Anyway, the narrator here approaches his father's home feeling estranged after having a vivid dream, only to discover that his father has long since gone from there. I walked up the steps and stood on the porch. A woman I didn't recognize came and spoke to me through a chain door. I told her my story and who I'd come for. She said, "I'm sorry, son, but no one by that name lives here anymore." The version of this song Bruce did for Springsteen on Broadway is just heartbreakingly beautiful, and it was the first version of this song that I ever heard. I actually recommend listening to that first instead of this Nebraska version, because the story he tells beforehand and during it is just exceptional. So if you haven't heard this song before, go and listen to that version, I think, first before coming back to the Nebraska version. So the album closes with the slightly paradoxical title, Reason to Believe. It's not a bright, affirming closer, it's a weary survival song. There's a few different characters who all endure hardship and wait for some small sign, a reason, that things might change. This is my favorite one, however, and I think this really brings out the theme. Congregation gathers down by the riverside, preacher stands with the Bible, a groom stands waiting for his bride. Congregation gone, and the sun sets behind a weeping willow tree. Groom stands alone and watches the river rush on so effortlessly, wondering where can his baby be. Still, at the end of every hard-earned day, people find some reason to believe. The track's tenderness and resignation make it a fitting end. It leaves listeners with a fragile ember. Now, to the much-told legend. After the demo tape, Bruce brought the songs to the E Street Band and attempted full arrangements. Some songs from these sessions later became staples, Born in the USA being the most famous example, but many electric versions felt wrong for this project. The lore of Electric Nebraska has fed decades of curiosity. Fans were certain it existed, but Bruce denied it until one day he stumbled across the sessions in his studio vault. Thus, we come to the 2025 box set, Nebraska 82 Expanded Edition, a multi-disc package that assembles home recordings, the Electric Nebraska full band sessions, a 2025 remaster of the original LP, and a newly shot performance of the film played in sequence. For years, fans and scholars alike have wondered what those demos would sound like with a full band. Hearing the Electric Nebraska material isn't about replacing the original album, it's about understanding Bruce's original choices. And the track that we already have out, the Born in the USA Electric Nebraska version, I prefer that to the version of Born in the USA that is out in the world. I prefer it to the synth, and I think the better version of Born in the USA because it really brings out the story and the lyrics that nobody listens to when they listen to this song. The synth and the chorus in Born in the USA take away from the story, and I think that this version on Electric Nebraska really makes the listener focus on what the story is really about. Anyway, I could go on about that forever, but man. Anyway, so then there's the new movie, Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, directed and written by Scott Cooper and based on Warren Zane's book, that stars Jeremy Allen White as Bruce, with Jeremy Strong, Paul Walter Hauser, Stephen Graham, Odessa Young, and Gabby Hoffman in the ensemble. The film premiered at festivals in 2025 and is slated for a wide theatrical release 4 days after this comes out on October 24. It dramatizes Bruce's life and creative process during the Nebraska period, and Bruce himself visited the set and gave his blessing for the project. The early coverage highlights how the film intersects with the new box set release, making October 2025 a major moment for re-evaluating the Nebraska era. So, Nebraska is one of those records that keeps giving. It's bleak, intimate, and surprisingly open to rereading. The new Nebraska Expanded Edition and Deliver Me From Nowhere give us more material and more angles. The demos, the electric sessions, and the dramatized retelling, all of which deepen our understanding of why Bruce chose a tape deck and a bedroom over a studio and a stadium sound. Well, that is all I've got time for this week, so thank you all so much for listening. I really hope you'll join me again next week for a look at what is perhaps the greatest singer-songwriter record ever made, Joni Mitchell's Blue. So, until the needle drops again, I hope you all have a great week, and bye for now.